I have had so many completely bald axolotls surrender to me due to being kept with feeder fish. However, I've also had a lot that to the untrained eye, their gills would seem decently healthy. With these axolotls, it's not until they've been given a month or two away from the constant fish trimmings that you really see their gills bloom and realize just how much damage had actually been done. And if you don't know what to look for here, you're not going to see it. You're just going to think the axolotl is fine and tell everybody that it's fine to keep fish with axolotls. When a lot of the time, you've got damage and you just don't know it. So, the main reason you don't want to be keeping fish with your axolotl is because almost all fish will pick at your axolotl's gill filaments. Whether you see it or not, it will be happening. In most cases, the largest risk here will be the fact that your axolotl is having to live with their gills constantly open to infection. This won't be the case for everyone, but I do find that a lot of the time, if somebody is willing to ignore the species-only part of their research, they will also be ignoring other parts of the husbandry research as well, meaning their water parameters will most likely be kind of off, making it even more likely that this axolotl is going to pick up something infectious. This gill picking is a risk from large fish and small fish alike. Obviously, the larger the fish is, the more damage it will do. However, smaller fish shouldn't be underestimated because they will obsessively pick. There's only really two reasons that a person might want to put fish with their axolotls, and they both come down to enrichment. The first one is enrichment for us. A lot of the times people don't do the research before getting an axolotl to realize that they are pretty boring species. They don't do much. So they'll get them and then they'll decide to put some fish in there for some movement and something to actually watch in the tank. The second reason is enrichment for the animal. They think that giving them something to hunt will enrich them. Most of the domestic axolotls in our pet trade are not hunters because they have had their instincts bred out of them for generations. Most of them won't even notice you dangling food in front of them for a few seconds. So if you're asking me, I think it's kind of mean to force an axolotl to hunt its food when you could just give it to them. Now, this isn't me saying that you can't offer your axolotl feeder fish. You just want to make sure that you have quarantined them and that you're feeding them by hand instead of making them live with or chase the fish. Which brings up my next point, which is thiaminase. Most fish sold as feeder fish on the market contain thiaminase, which to axolotls and most things that would eat them is considered an anti-nutrient. This means that they cannot break it down, but it also stops them from breaking down other nutrients that they need. Common fish sold as feeder fish that contain thiaminase are goldfish, danios, shiners, and minnows. Some fish that do not contain thiaminase that are safe to hand feed to your axolotl would be most live bearers like guppies, platies, and mollies. Now let's talk about bottom dwellers. Most bottom dwellers, if they're smaller than the axolotl's head, will be pretty quickly hoovered up. And the only one that I find actually beneficial to an axolotl's tank, if you're willing to battle the fact that you will constantly have to be adding more, are ghost shrimp. If I was going to suggest any animal to keep in an axolotl tank, it would be ghost shrimp and only ghost shrimp. They can do an amazing job to keep it clean, they leave the axolotl's gills alone, and they make a nice treat. Bottom dwellers that I would super not recommend are Cory catfish. For some reason, a lot of people try to keep Cories with axolotls, despite the fact that they don't have the same temperature range requirements, and catfish have spines, meaning that when the axolotls suck them into their mouths, these spines keep them from swallowing them and they can choke on them. And I have actually seen this multiple times. Another one that a lot of people don't consider are snails. Large or small, they both come with their issues. I would say the smalls are actually worse, which sucks because they tend to be the pest snails that we don't have much control over. The risk for large is actually to the snail, considering axolotls will mistake their antennae as worms and bite them off. And the risk with small snails is the fact that those little shells act just like gravel in an axolotl's belly, with the added benefit of the fact that they move and are more attractive than gravel. I've had a lot of axolotls surrendered to me from fully planted tanks who had to spend months here emptying themselves of snail shells. Can we just take a moment to sympathize with those axolotls and how that probably felt? Like, imagine pooping out eggshells. Now there's one last fish that is often put in axolotl tanks that shouldn't be, and it's because pet stores sell them as the cleanup crew and make it sound like they will help every aquarium they're added to, as if they're not just pooping out as much as they consume. And that is the plecostomus, otherwise known as the pleco, the suckerfish, the algae eater. First of all, the whole cleanup crew thing is a lie. Second, most axolotl tanks will not have an algae issue anyway because axolotls don't like light. If you have an algae issue, you're probably offering your axolotl more light than it would like in the first place. Third, plecos are really attracted to the slime coat of axolotls, so they'll suck onto the side of them, leaving a huge open wound. Large snails can also cause this issue. So there's some explanations on why axolotls shouldn't be kept with most aquarium species. However, before I end this, I also just wanted to bring up that even keeping them with their own species can come with risks. Considering axolotls aren't the brightest animals and have a very strong snap response to movement, they can easily nip each other accidentally, and because they do this thing like dogs do with a rope toy when they grab it and they shake, it can do some serious damage to each other. Most axolotls won't care whether they have a buddy or not, however, some will prefer to have one. Just keep in mind that those risks will always be present. Next week, I'll share some cohabitation tips to hopefully make introducing your axolotls a bit easier if you are going to keep multiples. Now, I realize this video is about to be bombarded by people coming into the comments to tell me that they have done these things that I'm suggesting against for years and have had no issues, so it's fine and my advice is useless. And to those people, I wish all the power to you. I can't stop you. The only thing I ask is that you acknowledge that you have been lucky and that your case is a minority instead of suggesting it to others, because in most cases they will come across one of the negatives I mentioned here. I'm just sharing the knowledge that I've collected over years of rehabilitating axolotls for the same avoidable issues over and over and over again. And I'm willing to bet that I have more experience with these issues than anyone suggesting that these aren't issues. So the ball's in your court now. You've got all the information. You can either take it and do the best that you can for your animal by researching why the majority of us say what we say, or you can just do whatever you want. It's not up to me. But if you found this video informational and you'd like to know more about axolotls, my name's Beck, and that's what I post about.